Oh boy, do we have a lot to discuss during this video. This is the 5 things we learned reaction to the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2024, and there's been a very big lot of, a huge amount of controversy really with this one. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into probably the least controversial thing I'm going to talk about during this. The first thing is that Oscar Piastri is a Grand Prix winner. He'd already won a sprint race at Qatar last season, but now undeniably he is a Grand Prix winner. He won the Hungarian Grand Prix this afternoon. He started in second place, but then got ahead of his teammate Lando Norris at the start. Norris again with an awful start. I will get into that a little bit more in my second point, but fantastic for him. He actually got jumped in the second stops though. This was a 2-stop race for the McLarens, and he actually got jumped in the second pit stop by Lando Norris, who was trying to cover off Sir Lewis Hamilton and did so successfully. And then Lando Norris eventually, it took him a while, but he did let Oscar Piastri through for the race win. A little bit like what happened back in Melbourne in 1998 between the two McLarens, Hakkinen and David Coulthard. And David Coulthard overtook Hakkinen because Hakkinen went into the pits for a mistake, but they were leading by so much that they just rid the cars. They did the same thing here. They won by pretty much 20 seconds during this race in the end. A huge margin by McLaren, a 1-2 for McLaren as well. First time in a very long time since they had that. But yeah, I am so happy for Piastri and so happy for McLaren, because this could have easily been very ugly if Norris actually didn't let him go. I will do a separate video going into that a bit more, but it was seeming for a while as though Norris was like, no, I'm not going to give the place back. This is my championship. I'm second in the championship. And Oscar has to, suffer because of that. But eventually he gave it back, and it seemed like they were all pally enough at the end of the race. But yeah, second thing we learned, Norris again with an awful start. I don't know maybe not awful start, but just not as good as a start as the people around him. I mean, Piastri got a lightning start, Verstappen behind as well, got the slipstream and got almost into the lead of the race. He ended up running very far wide. He kept his second place though, despite overtaking off the track. Again, that's another video I'm going to do explaining kind of what happened there. But eventually the team came on the radio and said, Max, just let the place go, let Lando Norris back through, because we think we're going to get a penalty for this potentially. And to be honest with you, I think they probably would. But again, I'm going to go into that a little bit more in a separate video. The third thing that we learned is that, I mean, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Max Verstappen, you know that, but I did feel for him a little bit during this race. Again, this is something I'll probably talk about in a side video, but it does seem as though there is something more going on. I mean, the way he acts on the radio, and I don't feel like he's being difficult on purpose. I feel like this is just the way he is and the way he was brought up, and it's something I'm going to speak about in a separate video. But I really didn't like it. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way towards Max. It just really unnerved me hearing what he was like and how he was acting. It just didn't seem right. It wasn't insulting. It wasn't, I don't know, just something about it. But I think the end result is that in a sense he's feeling the pressure, and he shouldn't be feeling the pressure. I mean, we obviously had the incident in Austria. Again, done a video on that already. But regardless of where you stand on that, the fact remains that he could have and should have won that race, or at least got second place. Because of that incident, he ended up finishing P5. This time he had an incident with Sir Lewis Hamilton, the fourth thing I want to talk about, and it was just a desperate lunge of a move. He was never making the apex of that corner. He dive bombed him from Austria. He was that far away. And Hamilton had every right to take the line, in my opinion. And it ended up being quite a scary crash for Verstappen. His rear wheels flew off the ground, and he ended up finishing in P5. But I'm telling you, that Red Bull is built very well, because it easily could have been a broken suspension, broken wheel, anything like that. But he ended up P5 in the end, which, given the crash, is not a bad result. But it could have and should have been more. Minimum P4 today, I think, for him, because McLaren was just too quick. But that did mean that Sir Lewis Hamilton picked up another podium today. Third place in Hungary, the track that he knows very well, a track that he's done so well over the years. 8 wins there, 9 pole positions as well, which is just ridiculous. And he had a very solid race today to finish in third place. His 200th podium in Formula 1, which is, of course, a record. But yeah, plenty to discuss in this one, plenty to discuss in other videos. I'm going to talk about what McLaren were doing, I'm going to talk about what Red Bull were doing, I'm going to talk about the incident between Hamilton and Max Verstappen and a few other things as well. I'm going to do a bunch of videos on them because there's so much to talk about, and I have some thoughts about them as well. But yeah, that's my general race review for this one. Championship battle is closing up for sure, but it's still a big gap for Verstappen. This is what I was alluding to before. It's a 76-point gap, which is pretty much 3 victories. It's a bit sad that he's kind of going like he is at the moment. He's really not being himself. This is not the Max that we've known the last 3 years, really. We've not seen this version of Max. I don't think we've seen a version of Max like this ever, but we've not seen anything like this for a good 3 years. But yeah, that's something I'll talk about in another video. I don't mean to disrespect the guy by any means, but it's worrying in more than one way, and I'll go into why in another video sometime. But yeah, as a race, it was very entertaining for most of the right reasons. But yeah, like I said, guys, we'll be covering that, and we'll also be doing plenty of build-up as well for the Belgian Grand Prix next weekend, so look out for all our preview videos and going over everything with that as well. And of course, keep it subscribed here to the F1chronicle.com to see much more videos just like this.